So in the previous video, we learned how to insert and delete rows and columns. But for this lecture, I'm going to be explaining how we can hide and unhide rows and columns. Now the purpose of hiding rows and columns is to hide data that you don't want to be visible to the user. Or you might have some extra data over here that these formulas reference, but this data actually doesn't need to be visible to the user. It's just used for formulas. So for this scenario, it would be useful to hide this data so that users don't get confused or accidentally mess up the cells that the formulas reference. Now once again, there are a few ways to hide and unhide rows and columns. For example, let's say we want to hide column E. First, we need to select the column, then give it a right click, and we can choose Hide. And this will hide the column. Now if you notice, between column D and F, there is a little double line right here. This symbolizes that there is a column hidden between column D and F. Now if you want to unhide this column, what we need to do is select columns D through F, give it another right click, and click Unhide. Now column E is back to being displayed. Now if you want to hide multiple rows and columns, we can do that as well. For example, let's say we want to hide rows 11 through 16. So first we need to select all the rows, give it a right click, and click Hide. Once again, we see that double line between row 10 and 17, signifying that there are rows hidden between row 10 and 17. Now to unhide, all we have to do is select the rows 10 through 17, right click, and click Unhide. Now all of our rows are back to being unhidden. We can also use Excel shortcut keys to speed up this process a little bit. For example, let's say we want to hide row 11. All we have to do is click any cell that is in row 11, and on your keyboard, all you have to do is press Control 9 or Command 9 if you're on Mac, and that will hide the entire row. And now if we want to unhide row 11, we have to select cells in row 10 and 12, and the shortcut key is Control-Shift-9, and that will unhide a row. Now let's do another example, and this time we're going to hide non-contiguous columns. So let's say we want to hide columns B, D, and F. So we're going to go up and select column B, press the Control key, and then select column D, keep holding the Control key, and then select column F. Now we have multiple columns selected. And the shortcut key to hide columns is Control-0. Now we have multiple columns hidden. And let's also hide a couple rows. Let's select row 11, press the Control key, select 13 and 15. And we can use the shortcut key Control-9 to hide the rows. So now we have multiple columns and multiple rows hidden. And let's say that we want to unhide every row and every column. It would take quite some time to select each one and click Unhide or use the shortcut key. So what we could do is move your cursor to the top left corner of the cells between row 1 and column A to select all the cells, and then we can move our cursor to one of the column headings, give it a right click, and click Unhide. That will unhide all the columns. Same thing for the rows. All we have to do is right click one of the rows and click Unhide. Now all of our columns and rows are unhidden. And another useful tip, if you don't want to see these column headings or row numbers, you can come up to the View tab and deselect headings. Now the headings are gone. This is more for presentation purposes, but having headings on while you're working is a lot useful so we can see which cells we're working with.